Thank you, Aquahirley. I want to support the Fianna Fáil motion which has been tabled. It is a motion which is well crafted and well intentioned. But the one thing missing from the Fianna Fáil motion is acceptance on their part of any responsibility for their policy failures in this area for many years. And I acknowledge that we had a general election in 2011. People passed judgment on the Fianna Fáil party at that time, quite rightly so. And there wasn't a very good or positive judgment, obviously because of their failures both economically and socially. But when Senator McSherry talks about keeping a straight face, I think it's very difficult for any of us to accept that when they don't take responsibility for their policy failures in this area when it comes to supporting older people. At this government's, I didn't interrupt you, Senator, once. This government's response to supporting older people hasn't been much better. So let's have a look at the record of Fine Gael and the Labour Party. We see cuts to home helpers and home care packages. We've seen the scandalous response to the illegal implementation of the mobility allowance in the motorised transport grant scheme. We have a lack of palliative care experts in hospice places. In my home city, we still don't have, of Waterford, we still don't have a palliative care unit for a population of over 500,000 people. The government has promised it will come. We still don't have the funding. And it's coming at a price where the people of Waterford City and County and the people of the South East are being told, you have to come up with matching funding. You have to go out and fundraise if you want a palliative care unit, because the capital funding is not being delivered by government. We also have a failure to provide adequate care for people with chronic diseases. We've seen the removal of the automatic entitlement to the medical card for over 70s, and we've also seen cuts to the fuel and the phone allowances as well. We still don't have enough community nursing units across this state and enough beds. In Waterford City, in 2008, we saw the closure of St Bridget's ward in St Patrick's Hospital, a geriatric care facility. And it was well over 20 beds in that unit. It was closed by HICWIN. And the then Minister for Health promised the people of Waterford and the people of the South East that a new 50-bed unit would be built to replace those beds that were lost. This government is now promising to build a new 100-bed unit, which sounds great and I welcome it, but there's only 6 to 8 additional beds being provided because a number of other units, because of the fact that they're in buildings which are not up to standard, are going to be closed and this new unit will be built. But we're still not even where we were in 2008. And I'm sure it's the same for any public representative in Waterford or maybe anywhere else. There isn't a day, there isn't a week goes by where I don't have to make a representation to St Patrick's Hospital or some other facility on behalf of a family, of an older person. They might be looking for convalescence, they might be looking to go into a long stay bed, they might be looking for whatever support is there, and there simply isn't enough places, Minister. That is the reality of the situation. We also have the outsourcing of home help hours, and we know that has an impact on the people who work in that sector in terms of their terms and conditions of employment. I've met many home help workers who have lobbied me on this issue, as have many trade unions, in relation to the impact that has. We have older people who are being forced into private nursing homes with the cost that it has on their families, where they have to top up the subvention that they might get, again for profit facilities. That's what's happening. We push people into the private sector like we are with housing, and we don't provide the public places because that's what Fine Gael does, and unfortunately being supported by the Labour Party in government. We now know that many visits for older people are 15-minute visits, which are wholly inadequate. And I have met many home care workers who work both in the public and the private sector who are very worried about the supports that older people are getting because of the cuts in this area. The pointed edge of this cuts agenda has been the drastic reduction in the number of public nursing home beds and the complete failure to prepare and implement a strategy to cater for long-term residential care needs of our ageing population. This is a government which promised us an awful lot more than what we got. And the austerity agenda which we've seen for the last 6 years, driven mainly by Fine Gael, who believe that cuts are better than taxing people who can afford to pay a bit more to provide the services that people need. That's what Fine Gael promised us, that's what Fine Gael are delivering. But the fact that they're being supported in this by the Labour Party, I think, is shameful on their part and shameful on your part, Minister, because the people who are losing out are those older people who are not getting the supports and not getting the services that they need, and it is also their families who look on in horror because there isn't enough home care help hours available for their mother or father or whoever it might be. There isn't the option to go into a long-term residential care facility. They might find it difficult to find a place in a private nursing home. And even under the Fair Deal scheme, families have to top it up. They don't have the money themselves. They might have people who are out of work. They've had their own problems with all the cuts that they've had to take, and yet they have to come up with more money again and again. So we're simply not responding to the changing demographic and the fact that we have an ageing population. We have to invest in this area, and if we don't invest in this area, Minister, we're going to end up with the same problems of long waiting lists and people not getting the support that they need. I do welcome the publication of the National Positive Ageing Strategy and recognise that this is a step forward. Its goals can be synopsised as follows: to remove barriers to participation and provide more opportunities for the continued involvement of people as they age in all aspects of cultural, economic and social life in their communities, according to their needs, preferences and capacities, and to support people as they age to maintain, improve or manage their physical and mental health and well-being. Yes, I have sharp criticisms of this government, but I do acknowledge that some positive steps have been taken. I think we have to welcome the positives while we're at the same time criticising the government for their failures. I have no doubt whatsoever that if the Minister was standing where I am in opposition and a similar motion was tabled by any party in government, when you consider the cuts which have been put in place, I have no doubt whatsoever, Minister, that you will be making exactly the same points I am here today, because you know it is a fact. You know it is a reality that we are simply not investing enough to make sure that older people get the supports that they need. And that is your job. That's your responsibility. You were elected. You can't blame the previous government. You can't blame other opposition parties. You have to take responsibility for your policy failures. And I simply don't see it happening. All I can see is more of the same, more cuts, refusal to increase taxes on those who can afford to pay most, so we can provide the services that people need. That's all we are asking for, Minister, from your government in this area. And while I support the Fianna Fáil motion, I do so acknowledging the fact that they too have failed in this area in terms of their own participation in previous governments.
Senator Gilroy.